Hi, everyone, and welcome to another City of Citrus Heights Facebook Live. I'm Nicole Baxter, and in honor of California's Arbor Week, I am so excited to be interviewing today city's arborist, Lori. It's Arbor Week. Citrus Heights just received Tree City USA recognition for the third year in a row. We're coming up on springtime. I think the first official day is March 20th. So everyone's thinking about their garden and trees. And we wanted to provide this interview to take community questions about tree care, the City of Citrus Heights tree program, and the importance of our urban forest. So Lori, to kick us off, I'd love for you to introduce yourself, tell us what an arborist does, and I'd love to know how you got into this.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. Thanks for having me. Very exciting that Citrus Heights is a Tree City USA for a third year in a row. That's a big deal. Yeah, so I am a certified arborist, and arborists study the structure and function of trees and also the health of trees and recommend pruning and care, identifying pests and diseases and things like that. I actually became a certified arborist about between 15 and 20 years ago. I've always been interested in horticulture. I studied horticulture in school. I was a UC Master Gardener, and I started working at the Sacramento Tree Foundation, which is where I became a certified arborist. And now I work for a private tree care company, and I'm excited to be the contract city arborist with Citrus Heights.
Well, thank you so much. What an interesting background. In Citrus Heights, I know it's kind of a fun fact. We have nearly 28,000 public trees, and a city staffer shared with me that that's more trees per square mile than the city of Sacramento, the city of trees. So
City of trees. That's true.
that's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Citrus Heights is covered with a lot of our native oak trees, and it's great.
So, maybe talk to us a little bit about the importance and the benefits of having trees. We refer to our trees here in Citrus Heights as our urban forest. Could you talk to us about why those are important for a community?
Absolutely. I mean, the urban forest is we all live in the urban forest, and we all benefit from the urban forest. Just the canopy cover that they provide, because when you live in a city, it creates an urban heat island effect. All of the heat that radiates off of the pavement, the concrete, the asphalt, and the buildings, and the glare. So having that canopy cover is really important. And the trees actually absorb things at the burning fossil fuels, and they provide oxygen, which recharges our atmosphere. They provide lots of benefits also for nature. They connect us with nature, um, providing homes and food for wildlife and birds and pollinators, all those things that are important. Um, and they add property value. They save us energy by shading our buildings. They add property value quite a bit. So, and people actually like to shop and linger in places that have trees too, because it's good for our mental health.
Absolutely. Yeah, you feel that when you walk around our neighborhoods in Citrus Heights, those big, beautiful trees. It's just, you want to walk in the shade and enjoy the outdoors. You talked about
Absolutely.
heat islands. It's springtime and we've got nice weather right now, but for sure, I know that, the shade and the cooling effect, air quality, all that plays into being out here where we are in Citrus Heights. So speaking
Yeah.
of trees and shade, did you want to talk to us a little bit about the Sacramento Tree Foundation's programs? And I can actually screen share.
Yes. So I'm a big fan of the Sacramento Tree Foundation. Oh, yeah, there's their website. And honestly, this is one of the best deals in town. I tell everybody about it. You can get free shade trees through the Sacramento Tree Foundation, and they have about 30 different varieties. All of the trees that you can get through them are chosen for being good, long-lived trees for the Sacramento region. And they have small trees, medium trees, and large trees. And honestly, one of the best things about it too is they show you where the best place is to plant the trees so that you can save energy and shade your house. So I highly recommend everybody check this out. If you have room for a tree, there's no reason you can't get one. And you don't have to be a homeowner. You can be a renter. You can be a church or a business, a school. They love to work with schools too. So yeah,
That's
I highly
excellent.
recommend it.
Do you talk to us a little bit about like what kind of space? I know you said make sure you have space for a tree, and I know you're passionate about making sure the tree is set up in the beginning for success. Talk to us about like space you need and maybe some things you can think about in the beginning with your trees to make sure that they have long, healthy, beneficial lives.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things. It's it's sort of like getting a baby, but not quite so intense. But yeah, you have to really think about the space that the tree is going to grow in, that it has enough room, that it's going to get irrigation because that's really important too. And the nice thing about the tree foundation is, I think you can see it on your screen there, is the planting video where they show you how to plant and care for your tree to get it off to the right start. So there's just a ton of information on their website, and you can call them too if you have questions on young trees or planting the tree. So
That's
um,
great. So we'll drop this link into the comments section of our Facebook Live video, but it is sactree.com. And if you're just joining us, welcome. It's California Arbor Week, and today the City of Citrus Heights is talking with our city's arborist, Lori, and we are covering the importance of our urban forest and taking your tree care questions. So we just covered the Sacramento Tree Foundation. One thing that I love that's on their website, Lori, is the Shady 80 list. I love a good marketing rhyming scheme. Could
right.
you tell us what the Shady 80 list is?
Yeah, so the Tree Foundation does offer, like I said, about 30 to 40 species that you can get for free, but they also wanted to provide more information on there's a for species diversity. The Shady 80 is an additional 40 uh, 40 to 50 trees that do very well in this area. So a lot of evergreens and just all kinds of sizes and shapes of trees. And so the Shady 80 is something if you're developing a planting plan or a space, they can actually provide trees from this Shady 80 to, as I said, schools. They work with schools and parks, and they can utilize this list to work in those areas too.
That's excellent. So while we're talking about tree care and being local, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the City of Citrus Heights tree program, which is uniquely funded by tree fees. And that program is available to all residents. If you're interested in talking to Lori about questions about trees, um, you want a free consultation, you're not sure if a tree permit is required, the first step to getting answers to all those questions is to call our planning division. So we'll also drop their phone number and the link to this article about our tree assistance program into the comments section, because we know here in Citrus Heights, we take our Tree City USA recognition seriously. So we want to help residents, businesses. If you have questions about your trees, we're here for you. So looking at other frequently asked questions, you mentioned that Citrus Heights uniquely is home to a lot of oak trees. Did you talk to our tree ordinance as it relates to oak trees and kind of protection and retention of our urban forest?
Yeah, definitely. So the native oak trees that are indigenous here, we have three specific species: the valley oak, the blue oak, and the interior live oak. And the city of Citrus Heights has a tree ordinance to protect the heritage and the character the region, and they protect these native oak trees if they grow to a size of 6-inch trunk diameter or larger. So if you do want to remove or heavily prune or anything like that to one of these protected trees, you would need a permit from the city of Citrus Heights. And that's actually one of the reasons, that's one of the stipulations of becoming a Tree City USA, is having an ordinance that protects trees. So,
Absolutely.
mhm.
Anything else to add about the ordinance, or we can move into creative ideas on how to celebrate?
Yeah. Also, so they do protect larger trees once they get to a certain size of a larger trunk diameter. Any tree species, or pretty much any tree species, is considered protected by the city of Citrus Heights and would require a permit to remove it. So, except for perhaps palm trees, which are technically a different, well, they're actually in the grass family, but
Oh, that's
um,
interesting.
yeah. So, but yeah, so anyway, that's, I'm happy to consult with people that have questions about their trees and options on how to maybe save those trees.
Awesome. Yeah, I know that there's concerns too when people are working on projects, um, utility lines, concrete, all those things. You might not be thinking about the trees on your property when you're considering a new project. So I know we're here to help answer questions and provide guidance around projects like that too.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point that you mentioned, construction and concrete beneath trees, because um, that's where the roots are, is pretty much under the canopy of the tree. So cutting roots can be very detrimental to your tree, and we can certainly help advise on that. And and that's also another thing that needs a permit too, is cutting roots.
Yeah, good to know. So moving into, we mentioned a couple times that it's California Arbor Week. It's clearly COVID times. We've been sharing a couple of like fun ways the community can celebrate. We're encouraging residents to send us pictures of their beautiful or favorite Citrus Heights trees. Just this morning, we shared some free coloring book pages for adults and kids from the Arbor Day Foundation. Lori, did you have any other words of encouragement or celebration ideas for those who do want to celebrate Arbor Week while staying safe?
One of the things that I have recently started doing is keeping a nature journal, which I think is awesome because kids can do it, and it just takes, a little spiral notebook or something like that. But it's a good way to get out there and really notice the trees and either draw them or write a poem about them or something like that. Also, I saw an idea where kids were out doing sidewalk chalk art, or also decorating their fences with chalk, and sort of drawing trees and birds and everything that is involved with trees. I think,
Absolutely. I love that. It's art outside. You can be among the trees while you're celebrating them. So these are some great
right.
ideas. Yeah, we're getting creative. If you have other creative ideas or ways that your family's celebrating, comment them on this video. We're all about sharing and celebrating. So moving into some frequently asked questions to give people a little bit more time to comment if you have questions that you want us to take live. I know that people often ask about watering and oak trees. Could you talk to us about your recommendations there?
Yeah, so that's it is really a good subject. The native oak trees grew here, and they're very well adapted. They're very drought tolerant. They don't actually need much summer watering. They tend to grow a good deep root system. And so, but if you plant your own oak tree rather than having a tree that started from an acorn in your yard, um, those trees, the trees that you plant, can take a little more water. But if you're watering around a tree that's been there a long time, they really don't like a lot of watering. They don't like actually any summer watering. But if you do, when we have drought years, they do benefit from having watering around excuse me, the edge of the canopy, which we call the drip line. That's where they prefer to get water. And using a
Interesting.
soaker hose is great because it delivers the water directly to the soil where the roots can access it. And if you're watering about where the water can reach, say 6 to 10 inches down, is where the roots can really use it. But putting a lawn around an old oak tree is not advised because that's too much water and it can actually rot the roots of a tree like that. So you want to be careful. You don't want your tree to fall over and you don't want to kill it. So being really careful about how you water it is important.
Interesting. Good tips there. Yeah, you mentioned trees falling over, and it's been a couple weeks now since we had that crazy winds, but I know that brought about a lot of questions about tree pruning and tree maintenance. Could you talk to us about what people can do, maybe for if they're planning on planting new trees, what they can do with their new trees, and then maybe some advice for existing big trees?
Yeah. So pruning a young tree is actually, it's super easy and it's really important because a tree that's been pruned well, what we call training pruning, to give it good structure where it has a nice tall single stem and branches that come off of that is the best structure for a tree. So just doing really small cuts when the tree is young can really get it off to the right start. An older tree that has really large limbs, it may need a little bit of pruning to keep it because out in the wild where they grow naturally, it's okay if they drop a branch. But when it's under or when there are houses and cars and things beneath the canopy, you have to be careful and lighten the load on those limbs. So it really does pay to be preventative and do some pruning, maybe every 5 to 10 years, something like that.
Great. And I know that there's this, I think is it called top or something? There's like a form of pruning that you don't want to do to your big existing tree, right?
Right. Thank you for mentioning that. That is such a pet peeve of mine. I hate to see that. It's so stressful for the tree and it takes away its natural grace and beauty. And it's just everything that grows behind those pruning cuts is weakly attached. You can make your tree more dangerous by pruning it that way. It's where it's an indiscriminate, just cutting off the top of the tree. And a good pruning cut, you won't really even be able to tell. It's like you won't, yeah, you shouldn't really be able to tell that the tree was pruned at all. So, yeah, it's a skill and it takes people years to do it and to learn how to do it properly. And they would be certified arborists or they would be supervised by a certified arborist. So I highly recommend you hire a certified arborist to prune your trees.
Yeah, you guys are like tree doctors, or I'm thinking of like when I get a really good haircut. I don't want anyone to even notice I got a haircut. It just looks so so smooth.
Natural, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Awesome. We covered the Shady 80, we covered our oak trees locally here. Um, the last question, I think, before we invite my colleague Megan on to take questions coming in live, is that someone asked, should I be concerned about vegetation growing on tree bark?
Growing on the trees. Yeah. So vegetation growing on the trees, I'm thinking they might be referring to ivy growing on the trees. And that's ivy can actually, it's so vigorous that it can grow up into the canopy and it can actually smother a tree. So I recommend you don't let vines of any type grow up your tree. It's like I said, it excludes sunlight from the tree and it's not able to um, photosynthesize and evapotranspirate and all those sort of things that it needs to do. So yeah, just give it space. And but they could also be referring to lichen, which also grow on the trees, which is a harmless thing. I see it pretty frequently, and that's not really something to be concerned about.
Gotcha, great. Well, Megan, if you'd like to join us and let us know if we have any questions from the community.
Hey, Nicole. Yes, quite a few followers are joining us today. We have a lot of tree enthusiasts in Citrus Heights. I'm very, very happy to report. So Colleen is joining us, as well as Dina and Kimberly, Mason. I'm seeing a lot of enthusiasm in the comments for our Citrus Heights trees. And in fact, the big theme that I'm seeing so far real time in the comments here is a desire for more trees. Tony says, asks, what is the plan to plant more trees on the walkway, on Old Auburn Path? And let's see, we also have a question. I'd also like to see more trees along Loppy Lane. So do we have any news to report for residents wanting more trees?
This might be a question that I'm going to have to track down the answer to. Unless Lori,
yes, but it's great to see the enthusiasm.
Yes, I love it.
And in the meantime, we do have some other frequently asked questions so we can learn a little bit more about how to take care of the trees that we already have. We're wondering what type of trees are available for assessment through the tree program?
I believe pretty much any type of tree. I have been called out to look at big old heritage oak trees, giant redwoods, and also trees that have only been in the ground for a year or two. People want to make sure that it's growing correctly, that they're doing the right thing, and that's great. I'm really excited to go out and help people with any kind of questions. Sometimes it's trees on a vacant property next door or something. So we can also look at those trees as well.
That's great to hear. So harnessing the enthusiasm for more trees, if folks want to plant their own, what is the best time to plant a tree?
Pretty much any time, but it is more stressful on the tree to plant during the heat of the summer. July, August, those are really the tough months. They can go through a lot of transplant shock and stress. So, but right now is actually perfect. Spring and fall are actually ideal in most parts of the country. We're just lucky that we have a pretty even temperatures around the year. So yeah, if they're ready to plant, it just you can do it at pretty much any time.
Let's get out there, friends, and celebrate Arbor Week, right?
Let's do it this week.
Let's do it this week. Yes. So taking care of the trees that we do have, we also have a question. What is that worm I see on my oak tree?
Yeah, so the oak trees are pretty much their own ecosystem. It's host to so many things, and some caterpillars. They are called worms, but technically it's a caterpillar. But they can get these things called oak worms, which live on the tree. They also get leaf rollers, and they're similar looking, and they hang by these little strands, and they eat the leaves. But it really is more of an aesthetic problem. And a healthy tree can deal with quite a bit of that. They'll eat the leaf and it looks like they're sort of defoliating the tree, but really it's, as I said, a healthy tree can put up with that, and using any kind of a pesticide to deal with it is really not recommended. As we, I think we talked about the UC website, Nicole. You can actually look up the oakworm on their website, which is a great resource. I highly recommend it to people. And it talks about integrated pest management. They've got a little search bar up there in the top right, and you can just type in oakworm, and it brings up a ton of information on oakworms. Yeah, that first one right there, oakworm management. So it really is something that if you can just tolerate those little caterpillars hanging from your tree for a couple of months during the year, it's really just something, they create food for birds, Wasps actually eat them. They have a lot of natural enemies. So they're part of the ecosystem. And if you can tolerate it, it would be ideal. If a tree is actually drought stressed or has some other kind of stress, it can create more stress for the tree. And if you go all the way down to the bottom of that page, it talks about some of the things you can do that are eco-friendly using some biological control. Yeah, that table down there at the very bottom talks about some things. But so there are things you can do, but if you can tolerate it and do nothing, that's even better.
Okay, well, that's some of the easiest instructions for maintenance I've heard.
Right? I like easy stuff like that.
Absolutely. Well, happy to report we have more tree enthusiasts joining us. I want to say hello to Maggie and Darcy and Sonia. Thanks so much for tuning in. Lori, I myself have a burning question. I want to know what your favorite tree is.
Ooh, gosh, that's sort of like asking your favorite child there. But I do, I'm very fond of the native oak trees, the valley oak and the blue oak. Those are some of my favorites.
Yes, definitely ultimate California vibes with those.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're so well suited for this region that, and the older they get, the more character they have. And they get these little galls that grow on them, which are fascinating. And yeah, they're beautiful trees.
They are. Great choice. Although we won't hold you to it. We know that you have to love all your children equally.
Absolutely. I love them all. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you, Megan. And thanks everyone who tuned in. If you are watching a recording of this and you have questions, continue to drop them into the comments and we'll address them. And again, I just wanted to reiterate, if you have questions about your tree care or the city's tree program, first step is contacting our planning division. So their phone number is 916-727-4740. And we'll also drop that information into the comments section. One way you can celebrate Arbor Day very easily is by sharing this video with your neighbors and encouraging your own planting events, taking advantage of the Sacramento Tree Foundation's Shady 80 list and free tree program. We know that during this time, there are still lots of ways the community can celebrate. So thanks again for tuning in. Thank you so much, Lori, for your expertise.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right. Well, until next time, thanks so much.
Thank you.